Marcus had learned early that life did not wait. Each morning before dawn, he rose with a stiff ache in his shoulders and a fierce determination in his heart. In the small apartment he shared with his younger sister, the air smelled faintly of instant coffee and leftover rice. He moved quietly, not wishing to wake her. She was 12 and depended on him for everything: breakfast, school runs, and the simple comfort of knowing someone cared. Marcus silently tied his shoelaces, checked the worn straps of his courier backpack, and stepped into the cool pre-dawn air. Outside, the city was already stirring. Streetlights faded against the first pale glimmer of sunlight. The hum of early traffic reached his ears as he mounted his bicycle and joined the stream of vehicles peeling toward downtown. He navigated through narrow lanes and wide boulevards, weaving between cars and buses. Every delivery mattered. Every package represented another dollar toward rent, groceries, and his sister's school supplies. No extra cushion existed in his budget. No day off to nurse sore muscles or catch a breath far away. In a tall glass tower shimmering under the rising sun, Evelyn Sinclair began her day. To many, she seemed untouchable, a powerful CEO whose decisions rippled through the tech world. Her mornings started in a spacious penthouse suite overlooking the city she helped shape. A personal chef prepared her green smoothie and organic oatmeal, each ingredient carefully measured for maximum nutrition and energy. Evelyn reviewed her calendar on a sleek tablet, her designer handbag already waiting by the door, its leather gleaming under the soft lighting. Despite her wealth and influence, Evelyn carried a constant pulse of pressure. Competitors watched her every move. Investors expected perfection. Her handbag, an exclusive model valued at $20,000, was more than an accessory. It was a symbol of her success and a silent announcement of her status. It opened and slipped in her latest reports: her tablet, a designer notebook, and a small vial of her signature fragrance. The bag's weight was familiar and reassuring, like an old friend. Back on the street, Marcus raced the clock, paused only briefly at intersections to catch his breath, then pushed forward. His legs burned, but he refused to slow down. Remembered the last time he had to explain falling behind on deliveries. The dispatcher's voice on the phone had been curt and impatient. "We can't afford mistakes," she had said. Mistakes meant fewer hours, which meant fewer dollars. Marcus could not let that happen again. As he rounded a corner, he caught sight of a convoy of black SUVs and shiny sedans pulling up outside a posh building. A sleek electric car glided to the curb beside him. He slowed to let it pass. From the passenger side, Evelyn stepped out, her heels clicking sharply against the sidewalk. She glanced at her watch as she lifted her bag and strode forward, head held high. Her stride was confident, practiced, each step precise. In that instant, their worlds seemed to align. Marcus pedaled harder to clear the way, but the bicycle's wheel grazed the strap of Evelyn's bag. He felt a sudden tug at his backpack. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then there was a sharp rip. Leather tore. Papers fluttered out and danced like startled birds across the pavement. His stomach dropped as he heard the hollow sound of leather giving way. Evelyn spun around, eyes wide. Her polished composure cracked. She dropped her bag and darted forward, hands flaring out to catch the falling notebook and scattered documents. Marcus skidded to a halt, heart pounding. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he took in the scene. Her bag split open, her papers scattered, and her face a mix of shock and fury. "Watch where you're going," Evelyn snapped, her voice sharp and fracturing the morning calm. A small crowd gathered, phones raised to capture the drama. Now Marcus felt his face flush with shame. He stared at the torn bag, at the neatly printed pages now crumpled in the gutter. His hands went slack on the handlebars. "I'm sorry," he stammered, voice barely more than a whisper. He wanted to sink into the ground. He imagined headlines: "Courier destroys CEO's bag." The thought made his chest tighten. Evelyn's shoulders tensed. She bent to pick up a page stained with a streak of dirt. Without warning, she crumpled it in her hand and threw it to the ground. The soft rustle echoed between skyscrapers. Marcus's heart sank further. The cost of that bag, the years it took to earn every penny, he felt like the lowest kind of criminal. He dismounted and approached. Her slowly hands raised in a powerless gesture. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll pay whatever it costs." His voice cracked. He unzipped his backpack, tugged out a few crumpled bills, and held them out. "Here, I have this." Evelyn stared at the money as though it were alien currency. She looked at his stained shirt and tired eyes. She noticed the fine tremor in his hand as he tried to smooth out the bills. Marcus's apology weighed on her. For a moment she could have called for security, pressed charges, and had him arrested. It would have been easy, justified even, but something stopped her. Maybe it was his sincerity. Maybe it was the burden he carried behind those eyes. She took a steadying breath and said, "Meet me at my office tomorrow morning. We'll talk about fixing this." Her tone was firm, but the edge of anger had softened. Marcus blinked, uncertain. He had expected disgust or anger, not this. "Of course," he managed. He offered a nod that held both gratitude and fear. The next morning, Riquette showed up at the gleaming lobby of Evelyn's company, clutching the torn strap he had cut off his backpack to pay for repairs. He felt a mix of dread and hope. As he rode the elevator to the executive floor, he rehearsed apologies and explanations. Would she humiliate him in front of her team, or banish him without a word? When the doors opened, Evelyn stood waiting near her office door. She looked as poised as ever, but her eyes held curiosity instead of scorn. She motioned for him to enter. The office was immaculate, walls lined with awards and photos of tech launches. Marcus's heart thudded. He hadn't been this intimidated. Since his first day at the diner job years ago, Evelyn gestured to a chair. As Marcus sat, he wondered what she would ask. Would she grill him about his finances, his motives? Instead, she simply said, "Tell me about yourself." He blinked in surprise. No lecture, no threats, just genuine interest. He spoke haltingly at first. He told her how his parents had died when he was young, leaving him to care for his sister. He spoke of his 2 jobs, the courier work and the evening shifts at the local diner. He talked about his dreams opening a small delivery business, one that treated workers fairly. His words stumbled out, but he felt a weight lifting Evelyn. Listened. She nodded, asked gentle questions, and leaned forward when he described the hurdles he faced. She seemed less a CEO and more a mentor, a guide. When he finished, emotion tightened in his throat. He waited for her verdict. She sat back and smiled, a small, real smile that opened her eyes. "I can help you," she said. "Not with a check, but with guidance. Meet me here tomorrow. We'll figure out a way for you to learn how to run a business start to finish." Marcus felt as though the floor had shifted beneath him. He could only nod. As he left her office, the city looked different. The sun was higher now, painting the streets in warm light. The memory of that torn bag still stung, but it no longer. Felt like the end of his world. Felt like the beginning of something new on. Unexpected chance born from a moment of chaos on a busy street. And for Marcus, that hope was more valuable than any $20,000 bag. Marcus felt his heart pound in his chest as leather tore. One second he was pedaling along, focused on the next stop, and the next he had ripped open something worth more than he had ever earned in a month. The morning sun glinted off the broken seam, and he froze, eyes wide. He saw the bag split down its side like an open wound, its contents spilling out onto the concrete. A small notebook fluttered, followed by glossy papers and a sleek tablet. Everything fell in slow motion, as though time itself had paused. Evelyn spun on her heel. Her long coat swept around her legs as she bent to catch the tablet before it slid under a passing car. Marcus heard the crack of its screen as it hit the pavement. He winced. He had destroyed not just a bag, but someone's tools, her work, perhaps even her livelihood. He swallowed, mouth dry, and set his bike on its stand. She straightened. The tablet clutched to her chest and turned to him. Her eyes burned like cold fire. A hush fell over the little crowd that had gathered. He could feel dozens of staring faces, phones poised to record every moment. He felt naked in their gaze. He rubbed a hand at the back of his head, where sweat made his hair cling to his skull. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice raw. His words felt small.
Out.
He He had practiced apologies in his mind over and over, but now they sounded hollow. Looked down at his worn sneakers, his scuffed jeans. He could have been anyone, an invisible courier chasing a deadline, but in that moment, he was the one everyone watched with disgust. "You ruined my bag," she said, voice low but sharp. She glanced at the torn leather and the scattered papers. "Do you know how much this costs?" Her tone held pain as well as anger. She sounded proud of her things, which made his chest ache. He could not afford nice things. He could barely afford clothes that did not have holes in them. He shook his head. "I didn't see you there, I was." He gestured helplessly. He wanted to explain how the dispatcher at work yelled at him if he fell behind schedule. How he needed every dollar he earned to keep a roof over his sister's head and pay for her school books. But words stumbled and broke. Swallowed again, forcing out the next apology. "I really am sorry." Evelyn crossed her arms. She lifted one eyebrow, a gesture that made him feel even smaller. She looked at the tablet at the torn seam, then at him. "This was not a cheap bag," she said. "It's a designer piece. It cost $20,000. She pronounced the number carefully, as though each word was sharp. "You expect me to believe you can pay me back with your sorry?" Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. 20,000. The number felt unreal. He thought of his meager paychecks, direct deposit into an account that barely covered the rent. He pictured the bills he had to pay, electricity, water, the grocery store's dusty shelves he scanned for sales. He had nothing approaching that amount. He could offer a week's wages, maybe 2, if he saved every penny. But 20,000 was beyond him. He opened his eyes and met hers. "I don't have that kind of money," he said quietly. "Why could you?" Almost hear the quilted lining of the bag tearing more as his words floated between them. He looked away at his backpack. He unzipped it without thinking and pulled out all he had. A handful of worn bills, dog-eared, maybe $70 at most. He spread them on his palm. She watched him, expression hard to read. He placed the money on the corner of the torn bag. "It's all I've got," he said. He swallowed the lump in his throat. "I'm sorry. If there's another way?" He reached out to straighten a jar of perfume that had rolled into the gutter. The bottle was intact, mercifully, but a light dapple in the golden liquid hinted that even it had felt the struggle. A man in a business suit snapped photos with his phone. A woman whispered into her companion's ear. Marcus imagined. The words, "Dirty courier ruined CEO's bag. Man too poor to pay." The shame poured over him. He wanted to flee. He wanted to disappear into the bustle of traffic and never return. Evelyn's lips pressed together. She bent and picked up the tablet, flipping it open to examine its screen. She handed it back to him. "No cracks," she said. "Good." She did not sound happy, but relief flickered in her voice. He exhaled, unaware he had been holding his breath. He slid the tablet into the backpack, careful now to avoid sharp edges. But her gaze shifted to the papers he had gathered. They were company memos, financial forecasts, sensitive documents. He had seen her switch passes for security just days ago. He knew she worked for a high-tech firm. His conscience twisted. All around them, people stared or took photos. No one offered help. No one offered mercy. It was his problem, his shame. She snapped the papers closed and held them against her chest. "You'll need to replace everything," she said. The words landed with finality. Marcus nodded, head bowed. He imagined signing his name on a bill of sale, an IOU he could never pay. He felt tears sting his eyes. He clenched his fists, too. "Keep from trembling. I'll find a way," he whispered. "I promise I'll find a way." His sister's face flashed in his mind, her hopeful smile each morning when he awoke her with cocoa and toast. He could not fail her. Evelyn stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked away at the street ahead, where cars rolled by, indifferent. She lifted her phone and called someone. Her voice was low. "Yes, it's me. We need security at the Main Street entrance. A courier just tore open my bag." She paused, listened. "Hold him there until I arrive." She hung up. Marcus's breath hitched. He felt cold again, although sweat still clung to his skin. Security would come soon. He looked up at her, wide-eyed. "Please," he said. "Please don't do that." His voice cracked. "I'll fix this. I'll pay whatever you ask." He could feel people edging closer, drawn by the tension. Evelyn tucked her phone into her coat. She straightened, her expression unreadable. Marcus thought she might nod. Tell him to go home and call her lawyer. Instead, she inhaled and exhaled slowly. "Meet me in my office tomorrow morning," she said. Her words were clipped, but they offered something he did not expect. A chance. He stared at her, heart pounding. The world seemed to tilt. He could almost hear the city's pulse quicken around them. Evelyn's coat swirled as she turned away. Gathering her papers and tossing them into a protective folder, she picked up the remains of her bag and tucked it under her arm. The designer label, half hidden where leather had torn, glinted softly. He watched her go. She did not glance back. The security guard did not hurry. The man in the suit continued snapping photos, perhaps for a story that would never see print. Marcus knelt and retrieved every scrap of paper he could find, fumbling with his fingers. He folded them carefully and placed them in a small pouch he found in his toolbox. He unhooked the strap of his backpack and handed it to a passerby for safekeeping. He could not carry it anymore, not here. The morning light warmed the street. Traffic resumed its flow, a steady river of engines and horns. Pedestrians walked on, either unaware or unwilling to linger. Marcus gathered the last of his courage, stood and clutched the pouch of papers to his chest. He stared at the spot where Evelyn had disappeared into the building. A few coins remained in his pocket. He considered spending them for a coffee, to calm his nerves, but he could not. He had a meeting now, a daunting meeting that would shape his tomorrow. He kicked at a loose pebble and felt its bounce under his shoe. "Tomorrow?" he whispered to himself. "Tomorrow? I'll fix this." Mounted his bike again and pedaled away, each push of the pedals heavy with uncertainty. He imagined telling his sister what had happened. He imagined her worry, her faith in him. He inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with the city air. The torn bag, the angry glare, the promise of punishment, all of it would not break him. He would face what came next, no matter how hard, because he had to. And still, despite everything, he felt a flicker of something new, inside hope. Marcus woke early the next morning with a knot in his stomach. He sat on the edge of his sister's bed and watched her sleep for a moment. Her soft breathing was a comfort he carried with him like a talisman. He tiptoed to the kitchen and made 2 cups of tea, one for him, one for her. Steam rose in the dim light. He set her cup on the table with a note. "Big day today. Love you." And he grabbed the small pouch of papers in his worn briefcase strap and stepped out the door. The city air was cool and gray. Marcus breathed deep to steady his nerves. He pedaled his old bike through quiet streets. Every turn brought him closer to the tall glass building where Evelyn worked. When he arrived at the lobby, he felt like a stranger in a strange land. Marble floors gleamed. Security guards nodded as he passed. He clutched the pouch tightly as if it contained his very soul. At the reception desk, gave his name and said he had an appointment with Ms. Sinclair. The clerk looked up, studied him for seconds that felt like hours, then handed him a visitor's badge. He pinned it to his shirt and swallowed. A bank of elevators stood before him. He pressed the button for the top floor and watched the numbers change in the little display. 15, 17. Each ding sent a twinge through his chest. When the doors opened, Evelyn was waiting. She wore a black blazer over a crisp white blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She held the remains of her bag in one hand and the visitor badge in the other. She looked at him for a moment and then offered a small nod. Warm, but it was not cold either. It was simply acknowledgement. "I'm listening," she said. Her tone was calm. It surprised him. He had expected anger. He expected her to demand payment or call security. Instead, she sat behind her desk and motioned for him to sit. His legs shook as he lowered himself into the chair across from her. The leather felt smooth under his hand, a strange luxury compared to the fabric seats on his bike. He cleared his throat. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. "I know I owe you more than I can pay." He looked down at the pouch on his lap, as though those papers were a shield. Evelyn watched him quietly, arms folded. He took a breath and met her eyes. "I want you to know why I was in a hurry yesterday," he said. "I had to make a delivery. Before noon. If I missed it, I'd lose my job. I have someone waiting for me at home." Evelyn uncrossed her arms and leaned forward. "Who's waiting?" she asked. She spoke gently, without judgment. Her question caught him off guard. He blinked. No other boss had ever asked about his life. Most just cared about speed and mistakes. "My sister," he said, voice soft. "She's 12. Our parents passed away when she was young. I raised her, cook her breakfast, help with homework. She thinks I'm strong, but sometimes I feel like I'm barely holding on." His voice cracked. He swallowed hard and pressed his lips together. For a moment, he thought he would cry. Evelyn reached into her drawer and pulled out a small handkerchief. She laid it on the desk between them. "Take a moment," she said. Her words were quiet but firm. Wrapped his fingers around the fabric and took a breath. He blinked back tears. When he looked up again, she was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "Tell me more," she said. "I want to understand." Marcus felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. Relief. He took the handkerchief and cleaned the edge of his eye. Then he spoke, telling her about his night shifts at the diner and the mornings on his bike. He described the angry dispatcher who shouted at him when he ran late, the tight budget that made every penny precious, and the hope he held that one day he could start a small business of his own. As he talked, Evelyn listened. She asked questions, simple ones like, how old is she now? And what does she want to be when she grows up? Her interest was real. She did not push him or hurry him. She did not glance at the clock. She leaned back in her chair and folded her hands, watching him with a steady gaze. After he finished, he felt lighter. He had unburdened parts of his past he rarely shared. He looked at Evelyn, expecting her to look away, but she met his gaze and nodded slowly. "You have a lot on your shoulders," she said. "I can see that. I can see you care about her more than anything." Her voice was warm. It surprised him again. "I'm not here to punish you. Here to help you find a solution." He raised his eyebrows, startled. "Help me?" he asked. "I told you I can't pay for my mistake." His words trembled. Evelyn smiled, then a quick, genuine smile that let him know she believed him. "Yes," she said. "Help. I own a company that values people, not just profits. I believe in second chances." She tapped a pen on the desk. "You made an honest mistake. You owned up to it. You showed up today to face me. That matters." He felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. He did not know what to expect next. Evelyn reached under her desk and pulled out a contract. "This is an internship offer," she said. The paper looked official, with her company's logo at the top in gold foil. "It's unpaid at first, but it comes with training, a mentor. And if you succeed, a full-time position at fair pay. You'll learn how to run operations, manage deliveries, even build your own team. And we'll repair your bag and replace your papers at no cost to you." His mouth fell open. The weight he had carried since that sidewalk accident felt like it had lifted. He tried to speak, but no words came. Evelyn held out the pen. "If you agree," she said, "sign here to start tomorrow." He stared at the line for a moment, thinking of his sister's smile, thinking of never living in constant fear of losing his job. He picked up the pen and signed, his hand steady. Evelyn gathered the papers and handed him a folder. "Welcome aboard, Marcus." She stood, offering him her hand. He shook it, uncertain if this was real. The grip was firm and kind. She smiled again, and for the first time since he could remember, smiled back without shame. He left her office feeling as though he walked on air. The elevator ride down was different. He did not fear the ding of each floor. He felt proud. At the lobby, he stopped to look at the reception desk. The clerk waved. Marcus nodded, badge in hand. It had become part of something bigger than himself. Outside, the sun shone brighter. The morning traffic hummed. He sat on his bike, still holding the folder. He pictured his sister's face when he told her about this. He imagined her eyes lighting up. He imagined telling her that their lives could change for the better. He pedaled away from the building, the city feeling new. The torn bag no longer haunted him. It had been a turning point, a strange gift that forced him to face his fears and find a path forward. As he rode toward home, he carried with him the promise of opportunity and the knowledge that even in moments of blame and shame, compassion could find a way in. And that thought filled him with hope stronger than any fear. Marcus arrived for his first day with a knot in his stomach and a folder of paperwork in his backpack. He pushed through the glass doors of the building, watching his reflection straighten his back and wipe his sweaty palms. The lobby felt different. Now, it did not seem like a place where he did errands. It felt like a gateway to something new. He stopped at the reception desk, showed his badge, felt a pulse of pride when the clerk smiled and said, "Good morning, Marcus." He nodded and headed to the elevator, quietly rehearsing what he would say to his new team. When the doors opened on Evelyn's floor, she was waiting. She offered a warm smile and a folder of materials. "Today, you'll meet your mentor," she said. "He'll show you around and help you learn the ropes." She tapped a name on her tablet. A few moments later, a tall man in a crisp shirt and khaki slacks approached. He introduced himself as Daniel Tran, head of logistics. Handshake was firm, his eyes kind. "Welcome, Marcus," he said. "Get started." Daniel led Marcus through bright corridors and into a large open office filled with desks and computers. Screens glowed with maps, charts, and numbers. Marcus felt a rush of excitement, steeled himself, and followed Daniel to a workstation. With dual monitors, Daniel explained that this was the hub for planning deliveries. He showed Marcus how to log into the system, check routes, and communicate with drivers. Marcus listened closely, typing commands as Daniel spoke. The commands flowed from the keyboard like water. He felt his confidence growing with each successful entry. After a short break, Daniel took him to a meeting room with walls of whiteboards. He sketched a flowchart of the delivery process from order placement to final drop-off. He pointed to bottlenecks where delays often happened. Marcus watched the diagrams and asked questions. When Daniel explained a confusing point about allocation of resources, Marcus remembered a similar idea he had once sketched on a napkin at the diner. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded scrap of paper, and handed it to Daniel. The page showed a rough drawing of a more direct routing plan, one that saved time and fuel by grouping certain stops. Daniel studied it, nodded, and said, "This is interesting. Let's test it." Marcus felt his cheeks warm. His idea was being taken seriously. Over the next week, Marcus split his time between training sessions and hands-on work. He learned how to use software that tracked every van on the road. He sat in on calls with suppliers and drivers, taking notes and asking for clarification. Daniel encouraged him to try new tasks. When a junior analyst was out sick, Marcus offered to help update route schedules. His fingers flew as he adjusted delivery windows and vehicle assignments. At the end of the day, he stayed late, reviewing data and refining his scrap paper idea. He created a simple spreadsheet to compare old routes to his proposed new ones. He color-coded cells, calculating expected time savings. By Friday afternoon, he had a clear chart. His plan could shave 20 minutes off each route on average, adding up to hours of saved time every week. Friday evening came, and Marcus felt a mix of exhaustion and pride. He packed his notes and headed to Daniel's office. The lights were still on, and Daniel looked up from his desk. "Good work this week," he said. Marcus laid out the spreadsheet and explained his findings. Daniel studied the numbers, tapped his pencil against the desk, and then leaned back in his chair. "This could be big," he said. "We'll run a pilot next week on 3 routes." Marcus's heart raced. A pilot meant real testing with real drivers. He nodded, swallowing a lump in his throat. "I'm ready," he said. The following Monday, Marcus met with drivers at the depot before dawn. He handed them printed maps with his revised routes. They studied them, raised eyebrows, and asked questions. Marcus answered each one patiently, pointing to shortcuts and clustered stops. A veteran driver named Rosa crossed her arms and said, "I'll try this, but if it slows me down, I'm going back to my old route. Marcus met her gaze. I understand, he said. Let's give it a shot. I'll check in with you after. Your first run? Rosa shrugged and climbed into her van. Marcus watched as she pulled away. Wondering if he had just set her up for frustration, he spent the morning tracking the pilot routes from his desk, as glued to the monitors. When Rosa's van appeared near the midpoint of her run, Marcus tapped his phone and called her. How's it going? He asked. She sounded surprised. Honestly, it's smoother than I expected, she said. I cut out a lot of backtracking. Marcus smiled, relief flooding his chest. Over the next hour, the other two drivers reported similar success. Their time on the road dropped by 15 minutes each, and they used less fuel. Marcus's idea was working. Daniel called a quick meeting. He congratulated Marcus and the drivers, then turned to the logistics director on a video call. We have solid data from our pilot, Daniel said. He shared the spreadsheet, pointing to the time savings and cost reduction. The director's eyes widened behind his camera. This is impressive, he said. Implement the new routes company-wide, and give Mr. Lee a bonus for his work. Daniel beamed at Marcus. Drivers clapped him on the back. Marcus felt his face flush with pride. He realized he had never been recognized like this in his life. That afternoon, Evelyn appeared at Daniel's desk. She took Marcus aside in the hallway and said quietly, I heard about your pilot. Congratulations. You turned a mistake into innovation. Marcus blinked. He had not expected her to notice. She tucked a stray hair behind her ear and continued. We want you to lead a small team to refine these routes further. If you succeed, we'll discuss a full-time position and a stipend to help you with your sister's school expenses. He swallowed hard, tears pricking his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. I won't let you down. Over the next weeks, Marcus balanced his internship with his life at home. He walked into the company each morning full of ideas, full of hope. He worked on analytics, fine-tuning routes, adding variables for weather and traffic patterns. Learned to present findings to managers using simple charts and clear language. Daniel guided him, offering feedback on his slides and coaching him on how to speak confidently. Evelyn joined a few presentations, nodding and asking thoughtful questions. Marcus felt himself grow more certain, more capable. At home, his sister noticed a change in him. He arrived at night with stories of data triumphs, of drivers thanking him, of new challenges waiting each day. She saw him smile more, stand taller. He cooked her favorite dinner of lentil stew and rice, and they talked late into the evening about her school project on community helpers. Marcus helped her research examples of people making a difference, and he realized his own story fit that. Theme, he whispered to himself as he tucked her into bed. We're going to be okay. One evening, after a long day refining route algorithms, Marcus received an unexpected package. Inside was a brand new laptop with a note, for your work and your future. E.S. He ran his fingers over the smooth surface and felt gratitude swell. He texted Evelyn, Thank you so much. This means everything, she replied. You earned it. Keep going. Marcus set up the laptop at his desk that night, opening it and seeing icons for mapping software installed by the IT team. He whispered, Let's get to work. Months passed, and the optimization project expanded. Marcus led a small team of interns and junior analysts, teaching them the principles he had learned. He fostered an environment where mistakes were learning moments, not reasons for blame. He remembered his own fear when he tore the bag and faced Evelyn. Now he was helping others take chances. He watched as his sister grew more confident, encouraged by his success. He saved money for her future and even started a small fund for summer workshops she wanted to attend. One morning, Evelyn invited him to her office. He entered to find a crowd of colleagues clapping. She stood next to a large screen showing the company's annual savings, millions of dollars cut from logistics costs. This, she announced, is thanks to Marcus Lee's vision and hard work. His cheeks burned with pride. He stepped forward as managers handed him a certificate of achievement and a check to support his sister's education. He looked out at the faces of people who had once been strangers, now his teammates and friends. He thought of that torn bag, of the accident that had started it all. He realized that a mistake had led to opportunity, growth, and change, not just For him, but for many. As he left the office that day, the sun was setting in rich hues of orange and pink. The city looked peaceful. He knew challenges lay ahead, new projects, new problems to solve, and always the task of balancing work with caring for his sister. But he also knew he was not alone. Evelyn had given him a chance. Daniel had given him guidance. Rosa and the drivers had given him trust. And he had given himself determination. He pedaled home through the fading light, heart full, ready for whatever came next. Marcus stood in the lobby of Evelyn's office building, the early morning light spilling through tall windows and painting golden patterns on the marble floor. He held a crisp envelope in his hand, the seal bearing the company's logo. Inside was the formal offer. A full-time position as a junior logistics manager, complete with benefits and a salary that would lift his family out of constant worry. His heart thumped as he read each line, hardly believing what he saw. He folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his jacket pocket. He thought of his sister waiting at home. Just yesterday, she had asked if they might move into a bigger apartment someday. Her eyes had held a mix of hope and doubt. Marcus smiled at the memory, feeling warmth spread through him. He rode the elevator up to Evelyn's office one last time as an intern determined to share his news. The doors slid open, and he stepped into her suite. Evelyn looked up from her desk and smiled when she saw him. "Good morning, Marcus." Her tone was soft, genuine. He realized how much he would miss her daily presence once he moved on. Cleared his throat. "I got the offer," he said, voice steady but trembling slightly. He reached into his pocket and laid the envelope on her desk. "I'd like to accept it." Evelyn's eyes brightened. She stood and crossed the room in a few confident strides. She extended her hand. "Congratulations," she said. "You've earned this." Marcus shook her hand firmly. The simple gesture carried so much meaning, respect, trust, and recognition. He had never felt before. He left her office with a light step, as though gravity had lessened its pull. Riding his bike through the city streets felt different now. He noticed the way the sun glinted off glass buildings and the way the air smelled like summer blooms. He felt part of the city in a new way, a contributor rather than an onlooker. When he reached home, his sister ran to greet him at the door. Her school bag bounced against her back as she hugged him tightly. "Big news?" she asked, eyes bright. Marcus knelt to her level and hugged her back. "The best news," he said. He pulled the envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. She tore it open with childish excitement and read the paper inside. She looked up at him, mouth open in shock. "You have a real job?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded, eyes moist. "Great one," he added. She jumped into his arms, nearly lifting him off the ground. Marcus laughed and held her, feeling a joy he had never known. He realized in that moment that they had crossed a threshold together out of struggle and into a new world of possibility. That weekend, Marcus bought new clothes for his sister's school year. He bought her notebooks and pens in bright colors, took her to the park and let her choose an ice cream flavor she had never tried. He watched her run through the grass, hair bouncing in the breeze, and felt a fierce love. He promised himself that he would give her every chance to learn and grow, just as Evelyn had given him. Back at work on Monday, Marcus walked into the logistics department with his badge clipped to his shirt pocket. Daniel greeted him with a fist bump. "Ready for your first day as full-timer?" he asked. Marcus grinned. More than ready. He settled at his desk, logged into the system, and saw his name next to his new title. It felt like a declaration. Marcus Lee Jr., Logistics Manager. His responsibilities grew. He led weekly meetings with drivers and analysts discussing route efficiencies and customer feedback. He mentored new interns, remembering the fear he had felt on his first day. He told them to ask questions and to see mistakes as lessons. Worked closely with the IT department to develop a user-friendly app for drivers, one that updated routes in real time based on traffic data. His sister saw the app on his screen and asked if he could show it to her classmates for her school project. He agreed, proud that his work had real-world impact beyond company walls. One afternoon, Evelyn invited Marcus to a rooftop terrace for a quiet chat. The city stretched out below, its hum distant. She handed him a cup of tea. "You've done well," she said. "You've helped this company save millions and improve the lives of our drivers." She paused, studying him. "I want you to take on a new project expanding our model to other cities." Marcus's chest tightened with excitement. "I would love that," he said. She smiled and continued, "Also, I've arranged for you to attend night classes in business management, fully paid by the company. You mentioned wanting to learn more theory, and I believe you'll benefit." He blinked, surprised. His sister had dreamed of college one day. Now he had a path too. "Thank you," he said, voice thick. He spent that summer traveling to another city with a small team, gathering data and testing routes. He navigated unfamiliar neighborhoods on a borrowed bike, noting every detail like a detective. Local drivers welcomed him, curious about his ideas. He remembered his own nerves and made sure to listen patiently to their concerns. Together they adapted his systems to local conditions. By the end of the trip, they had reduced delivery times by nearly 20%. Marcus sent a report to Evelyn, who praised his work and asked him to lead a regional rollout at home. His sister grew into a confident teenager. She joined the debate club and asked Marcus to coach her on persuasive language. He helped her construct arguments, drawing on his own experiences, pitching ideas at work. He reminded her that respect and empathy went a long way, something he had learned from Evelyn. He encouraged her to speak up, to share her story, and to use her voice. On the 5th anniversary of that fateful day, the day he tore Evelyn's bag, Marcus invited her and Daniel to a small celebration at a local cafe. He reserved a corner table and decorated it with balloons and photos from his journey, a picture of his sister cheering him at a company event, a snapshot of him and Daniel examining a route map, and a candid shot of him showing interns how to use the new app. Evelyn arrived in a simple dress, smiling warmly. Daniel carried a cake that read, "To New Beginnings." Marcus stood and raised his glass of sparkling juice. The cafe fell quiet. He cleared his throat. 5 years ago, I made a big mistake," he began. "I tore a bag worth more than I had ever seen. I expected anger, punishment, or worse. Instead, I met a woman who saw beyond my error and gave me a chance. A chance that changed my life and the life of my sister. From that day forward, I learned that opportunities can come from the most unexpected moments, that kindness can build bridges across worlds. It's in that hard work, honesty, and the willingness to learn can create new paths." He looked at Evelyn. "Thank you." Then he looked at Daniel. "Thank you." The room filled with applause. His sister beamed at him. From her seat, Marcus sat down, his heart full. He realized that success was not just about numbers and routes, but about relationships and trust. The evening ended with laughter and stories. Evelyn reminded everyone how nervous Marcus had been on his first meeting. Daniel recounted the time. Marcus had stayed overnight to fix a software glitch, fueled by nothing but coffee and determination. His sister teased him about his old sneakers. Marcus laughed along, knowing that embarrassment was a small price for growth, as he walked home. That night, the streets gleamed under lampposts. He felt gratitude for every step of his journey, the rush of that morning ride, the tear in the leather, Evelyn's measured pause, the offer of mentorship, the long nights learning new skills, and the steady rise into leadership. He thought of others who might be walking through life's busy streets, carrying heavy burdens, longing for a chance. He hoped they too would find someone to see their potential beyond mistakes. When he reached his apartment, his sister was already asleep. He peeked into her room and watched her chest rise and fall. He placed a small gift beside her bed, a framed photo of the two of them at the celebration. He whispered, "We made it." Then he switched off the light and closed the door gently. Marcus lay awake for a while, thinking of tomorrow's challenges and opportunities. He felt ready. He had learned that life could turn on a moment's accident, and that compassion could shape destinies. He closed his eyes with a smile, heart steady, eager for what the future would bring next.